You know that feeling, right? That brief moment of calm you might get, maybe after a deep breath or just a quiet second outside. It feels good, sure, a nice little pause, but it doesn't really stick, does it? That really deep, kind of solid feeling that, everything's fundamentally okay. That sense of internal safety. Well, for a lot of us, that foundation just wasn't really built back in childhood. And what's kind of frustrating is many of those common calming techniques, they help you relax a bit, but they don't quite deliver that profound sense of security we're actually searching for.
That's such a key distinction.
Yep.
They might give you a temporary fix, a bit of calm, but they don't necessarily get to the root of it, that absence of a real internal secure base. That foundational feeling of safety within yourself. So today, in this deep dive, we're going to try and unpack what true internal safety actually is, why it's so incredibly vital for our well-being, and maybe most importantly, the real tangible steps you can actually take to cultivate it inside yourself, no matter where your journey started. We've looked at some really fascinating insights, pulling from psychological research on things like self-compassion, insights from online communities talking about complex trauma, and expert guidance on practical self-regulation tools.
Okay, so we've kind of set the scene, talking about this feeling of safety that can be pretty elusive. But let's dig in a bit deeper. What does it actually mean? Because, like you said, it's way more than just, feeling calm on the surface. We're talking about establishing this core feeling of being present and genuinely okay. For some people, their normal baseline might even feel like a sort of mild dissociation, right? That subtle detachment from what's happening right now, almost like your mind just kind of checks out or floats off a bit to cope with things that feel overwhelming. So feeling just fine and present, they can be a huge shift.
Exactly. It's a massive shift. And this deep internal safety, it's fundamentally linked to having a strong, cohesive sense of self. Think of yourself as the central command center for your whole being, maybe. It's what organizes everything, your sensations, feelings, thoughts, your attitudes about yourself, about the world. When that self isn't strong, when it feels maybe fragmented or shaky. Well, big implication is we often end up constantly looking outside ourselves for approval, for validation.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's like your mood just gets tossed around, isn't it? Like one of our sources put it, kind of blown by the wind. Someone criticizes you, boom, you feel totally crushed. They praise you, suddenly you're flying high. Your sense of value isn't anchored internally. It's all dependent on what others think or say. So what's the ideal picture? How does this self-cohesion usually develop?
Well, ideally, this inner security starts building very early. Usually by about age 4, a child starts to internalize the love and security they get from their early caregivers. This process builds what psychologists call the psychological capacity to be alone. It's really about that internal secure base becoming so solid that you can genuinely be with yourself, Find contentment just in your own company without needing constant external feedback or input.
I love that idea. It fits perfectly with that quote I remember reading. Something like therapy is completed when a child can play alone. It's not about being isolated, is it? It's about having this deep, quiet confidence in your own being, a kind of self-sufficiency that comes from the inside out.
Exactly. And, well, unfortunately for many people, the secure base just wasn't fully formed. And this can lead to a tendency to seek safety almost exclusively in external relationships, which you can imagine puts a huge amount of pressure on those relationships, on other people. We saw a really powerful example of this. One person shared that a romantic relationship was quite literally the only thing that ever gave them a full sense of safety. Take that away, and they felt completely lost.
Wow, that sounds incredibly precarious.
Yeah.
Placing all your emotional safety in one basket like that. And here's where it gets really, really interesting for me. Another person shared almost the opposite experience. Being in a calm, peaceful relationship actually made their anxiety symptoms worse. They realized they were so used to chaos, their system just didn't know how to handle peace. It was a classic case of you fear what you don't know, right? The unfamiliarity of calm felt more stressful than the familiar discomfort of turmoil.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How our deep-seated patterns can make even really positive things feel unsettling if they're too different from our internal normal. This just highlights how essential it is to actively build that inner sanctuary if it wasn't established for us early on.
Right. So if that basic security wasn't laid down in childhood, what are the key psychological strategies we can use as adults to really start building it? Where do we even begin?
Okay, a really crucial first step is actively cultivating self-cohesion and self-compassion. Self-cohesion basically is about having confidence in your own personality. It's that inner resilience that lets you bounce back from life's inevitable bumps, the failures, the rejections, the disappointments. You could think of it like your internal shock absorber. It lets you stand firm and recover, not because you're perfect, but because you know you're fundamentally an integrated, okay person, regardless of what's happening externally.
And then there's self-compassion, which our sources suggested is actually a much healthier and more sustainable path than just chasing traditional self-esteem. I always figured self-esteem was the goal, you know. But it can have some downsides, can it? Like being linked with narcissism sometimes, or that feeling where you only feel good if you feel superior to others.
You've had a really important point there, yeah. High self-esteem, even though we praise it a lot, doesn't always lead to better performance or prevent bad behavior or even stop prejudice. Self-compassion, though, seems to offer most of the benefits without those serious downsides. It has three main parts. First, self-kindness. This just means being caring and understanding towards yourself, especially when you're having a hard time or you mess up. Offering yourself comfort instead of that harsh inner critic voice.
Okay, so instead of beating yourself up, you actually treat yourself like you would a good friend who's struggling. Makes sense.
Precisely. The second part is common humanity. This is about recognizing that, hey, imperfections, failures, making mistakes, that's all part of being human. It's a shared experience. It helps you get perspective, helps you realize you're not alone in your struggles. Everyone goes through this stuff. And third is mindfulness, which means being aware of what you're experiencing right now in a clear, balanced way, not ignoring the tough stuff, but also not getting totally lost in ruminating on it, just observing without judging it so harshly.
Wow, that really does flip the script on how many of us think about self-worth. So if self-compassion is this powerful, what does it actually do for us day to day? What are the real benefits we might see?
This is where it really starts to make a difference. Research consistently shows that higher levels of self-compassion are linked to more happiness, more optimism, greater curiosity, feeling more connected to others. And crucially, it significantly decreases things like anxiety, depression, that endless negative rumination, and the fear of failure. And despite what some might think, self-compassion doesn't make you lazy or complacent. It actually boosts your personal drive for positive change, but it motivates you for intrinsic reasons because you want to grow, not for external praise or needing to be better than someone else. And importantly, it has no link to narcissism.
That's a really profound difference. Okay, but what about those really deep patterns we pick up from childhood, those subconscious internal working models or scripts, like these hidden rule books we learned as kids about how the world works and how we need to act, maybe manipulation or being instantly defensive or even using subtle threats to get boundaries respected? How do we even start to spot those and deal with them?
Yeah, that's a huge challenge. And often it involves realizing as an adult that these behaviors, which might have been necessary for survival back then, just aren't working for you anymore. They might even be causing harm now. One person shared some really vivid examples, like how they learned to manipulate to get needs met in a really difficult home environment. Things like hiding eggs to sort of subtly frame needing things when asking for a ride to the store, or that automatic impulse to apologize constantly, even when they hadn't done anything wrong at all.
Wow. Those sound incredibly hard to unlearn, especially if they're so automatic you don't even notice you're doing them. And the shame that must come up when you start recognizing those patterns. I can only imagine how tough that first step must feel.
Honestly, the shame is often the biggest hurdle. But the really crucial thing to remember here is that all human behavior is learned. And because it's learned, it can be changed. It's not fixed. Now, this process, it involves a lot of mindfulness. It means questioning those automatic urges when they pop up, consciously reminding yourself, okay, what would a healthier response look like here? It means pushing through the fear that the new way won't work or will feel awkward, and then actively practicing those healthier behaviors over and over.
So it's not just thinking about it, it's like active, real-time rewiring. And you're saying the payoff is actual real-world success.
Yes, exactly. The individual who shared those stories, they specifically noted that after putting in the hard work to learn how to interact in healthier ways, they actually found more success and built more fulfilling relationships than they ever did using those old, ingrained, sort of toxic patterns. It absolutely takes courage, but it really can work.
Okay, so we've covered some of the deep psychological shifts, really important stuff. But what about right now, in the immediate moments when you feel totally overwhelmed or distressed, or maybe even just numb? What are the practical tools for finding some stability right here, right now?
Right. That's where grounding techniques are incredibly useful. They're specifically designed to pull you back into the here and now. They offer a sense of control when you're feeling swamped by anxiety or maybe experiencing dissociation, that feeling of disconnection, or even that constant state of being on high alert, hypervigilance, even when there's no actual danger. They work by shifting your focus away from those internal thoughts and overwhelming feelings and onto the physical world around you.
Yeah, I've heard about some of these, but it's always good to have concrete, actionable examples. Can you give us a few we could try?
Absolutely. For sensory focus, you could try simple things like running cool water over your hands, or placing a cool pack, maybe even just a cold cloth, on your eyes for a moment, or just deliberately touching different objects around you. Feel the texture of your clothes, a pen, the surface of the table, the wall. Really notice the temperature, the weight. You can also literally ground yourself by digging your heels into the floor, feeling that connection, that tension. Or try eating something very slowly and really describe its flavors and textures to yourself. Is it sweet, salty, crunchy, smooth?
So really using all five senses to pull yourself back into the present. Okay, what about cognitive grounding, for when your mind is just racing?
Yeah, for cognitive focus, there's that popular 5-4-3-2-1 technique. You probably know it. Name 5 things you can see right now, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can physically touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Or you could try describing your environment in really vivid detail using all your senses, almost like you're painting a picture with words for someone else. Even just counting very slowly, maybe backwards from 10, or saying the alphabet really, really slowly can work. It forces your brain to focus on a simple, concrete task and pulls you out of the spin cycle.
And what about techniques focused on body awareness? Because sometimes you just need to feel physically here.
Definitely. Simple things work wonders. Just stretching different parts of your body. Or clenching and unclenching your fists, really noticing the tension and then the release. Progressive muscle relaxation is great too, where you systematically tense different muscle groups for a few seconds, then completely relax them, paying close attention to the difference between the tension and the relaxation. The more present you are in your physical body, the calmer and safer you tend to feel, because you're actively occupying your physical space. Right here, right now.
That makes sense. Okay, so beyond grounding for immediate stability, there's also self-soothing, right? Which sounds a bit like that's what a good parent does for a baby.
Exactly like that. Self-soothing is all about healthy coping. It's about calming and relaxing yourself when you feel overwhelmed, but doing it in ways that are nurturing, rather than resorting to quick fixes that might be harmful or addictive in the long run. Think about things that genuinely bring you comfort. Maybe slowly sipping a warm cup of tea or hot chocolate. Wrapping yourself up in a heavy, comforting weighted blanket can be amazing for some people. Taking a warm shower or bath, lighting a scented candle you love, putting on some calming music, or spending time stroking a pet. Even engaging in rhythmic, repetitive activities like knitting or crocheting or maybe going for a gentle bike ride can be incredibly soothing because of that predictable rhythm.
And breathing. Breathing seems to pop up everywhere with these techniques. Is there a specific way to breathe that's most helpful?
It's absolutely fundamental. Slow, deep breathing, where you make your exhale longer than your inhale, for instance, breathing in for a count of 4, and breathing out slowly for a count of 8 is particularly effective. This directly activates your body's relaxation response, the parasympathetic nervous system, and it can instantly calm down your physiological state. We often recommend proactively creating a distress kit, just a small box or bag filled with items that soothe you personally. That way, you have tools ready to go when you need them most without having to scramble or even think too hard.
That's such a practical idea. Because, when you're really overwhelmed, your thinking brain isn't always online, is it? Okay, now let's shift a bit and talk about that inner voice, and also how our connections with other people play into building the security.
That inner voice. It can be truly transformative. So many of us walk around with a really harsh inner critic just tearing us down. But self-talk can be an incredibly powerful tool for building internal safety. Instead of that criticism, you make a conscious effort to talk to yourself in a soothing, compassionate way, using phrases like, "I'm sorry you're going through this right now," or "I'm here for you, I love you, you are not alone in this," or even just, "It's okay to feel this way." But saying these things to yourself can powerfully counteract that negativity and start building an internal sense of being cared for, almost like you're becoming your own best, most trusted caregiver.
It really sounds like actively nurturing that secure base within yourself, piece by piece. And how do healthy relationships fit into this as adults? What does secure attachment actually look like in grown-ups? And can we even develop it if we didn't have that secure start?
Healthy relationships are still absolutely vital, yes. In adults, secure attachment tends to show up as things like trust, honest communication, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and being able to resolve conflicts collaboratively, not destructively. It's about finding that sweet spot, that balance between intimacy and maintaining your own individuality, and providing mutual support without completely losing yourself in the relationship. And here's the really hopeful part. Attachment styles can evolve. They aren't set in stone. Even if your childhood didn't give you that secure foundation, you absolutely can cultivate more secure attachment patterns in your adult relationships.
Okay, that's really good news. So how do we actively do that? What are the steps involved?
Well, it involves things like consciously spending quality time together, making an effort to be emotionally available and present for your partner, trying to avoid judgment, both of them and yourself. And something really helpful can be to actively seek out and just observe securely attached people in your life, friends, family members, couples you admire. You can learn a ton just by noticing their patterns of interaction, how they communicate their needs, how they handle disagreements. And of course, for deeper issues, or if past trauma is involved, seeking professional guidance is key. Therapy, whether it's individual or couples counseling or specialized approaches like DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, which really helps with managing intense emotions and improving relationships. Or something like IFS, internal family systems, which helps you understand the different parts within yourself to create more inner harmony. These can provide invaluable support, new strategies, and crucial perspective shifts.
Right. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what's the big takeaway here? What's the ultimate message about cultivating this really profound sense of internal security?
I think the biggest message is that developing this deep sense of internal security, it's truly a journey. It's not like you arrive at a destination and you're done. It's really about self-discovery, about embracing radical compassion for yourself, actively working to rewire those old patterns that maybe helped you survive once but aren't serving you now. And it's about consistently using these practical tools we've talked about to ground yourself, to bring yourself back to the present moment when things get tough. It's really a brave and it's an ongoing act of building that secure base within your own being, regardless of how your story began.
Yeah. And the core truth, the absolute bedrock beneath all of this has to be this. You are absolutely worthy of love, connection, and care, full stop. And it is truly never, ever too late to start cultivating this inner sense of safety and stability within yourself.
Absolutely. So maybe just consider this as we finish. What single small act of self-kindness could you practice today, right now even, to begin nurturing that deep, stable sense of security right there inside your own being?